Thank you very much. It's really great to be here. It's great to be in front of a live audience. And Peter, I'm actually following not only in your footsteps, but I'm actually kind of talking about some of the things, and I know that you were cut off a little bit, so I'm pretty sure that I will mention some of the things that you also approach. First of all, I'm sorry for the spelling mistake here. Syslist, that's something new, but I actually do not. I'm not very fond of this Copenhagen-Amsterdam competition. Of many reasons. I'm half Dutch, so a part of my heart is in the Netherlands also. And secondly, I learned from a very good friend, the former Dutch ambassador to Finland, Henk Zwarta, who is a personal friend of mine. He actually kind of put it into my mind, let's work together on this. And Henk is now the president of the European Cycling Federation, and I really do not believe that we could have a stronger person in head of the European cycling movement than him, because he's a diplomat. He has lived 4 years in Helsinki. He's been the ambassador also to Denmark, lived 4 years in Denmark, lives in Sweden now. So I think, especially in our part of the world, he's a very good person on board that. Like Peter and Annie, I'm also a deputy mayor in the city of Copenhagen, and we are apparently the deputy mayors. We are the change makers, and we can kind of set the agenda for this. But there is nothing that, even though it's a long time ago, for me it's more than 10 years ago since I stepped down, but if there's one thing that makes me still extremely happy, it is city leadership. It is a political leadership in cities who basically wants to create a good life for its citizens. And we can come from different political parties. We can have different political agendas on economic politics and stuff like that. But we kind of have the same goal about creating a livable, healthy city with a good environment. And I think that is also interesting in a cycling context, because at least one of the successes in Denmark has been that there is kind of no political color in the cycling policies. It is a political field that kind of gathers all political parties. There may be differences, but it kind of gathers them together. And also, as a former deputy mayor, I like the idea of cities working together. We were in the city of Copenhagen, a strong member in Eurocities. I know there are other organizations, CiViTAS is one of them, but I really do believe that the Handshake project is an extremely good thing where politicians meet each other, where civil servants meet each other, and also where civil society organization meets each other and exchange experiences. So thank you for that. I will try to elaborate for the next 25 minutes on some of the things that I think are important. And going back to the Danish-Dutch competition, I think it's important to understand that our cultures are also different. And I can say that being half Dutch, we have different ways of interacting with each other. I normally say the Danes are peasant people, so we look into the ground, and we are not that. The Dutch are much better in kind of having this eye-to-eye contact, which is a bit uncomfortable for us. So that is one of the reasons why we have a very structured bicycle infrastructure layout, because the Danes like when they're told exactly what they're expected to do, and they do it. Pro-vaccine. But just to say that when you work with bicycle culture, and that is maybe also an advice to Annie, is also working with how is the local culture. And of course, Denmark and Finland, we are kind of part of the same Nordic family. And there's one thing that we do have in common. We are Nordic countries with very dark winters. So we enjoy when the spring is there. We enjoy when the summer is there. We enjoy being in the outdoors when the light is there. But of course, we also want to be physical active. I mean, you don't know that as Dutch, but we know that when you have these days in the winter, when it's completely dark when you get up and go to work, and it's completely dark when you leave your office and go home from work. So how do you create environments for cyclists where you can still be a cyclist under those conditions? And it's not only a matter of having a light on your bicycle, it's also a matter of basically having light on the bicycle infrastructure, especially in some of those unsafe spaces where some people may not feel that safe that you actually create that. It's important to understand that cycling culture in Copenhagen and Denmark is nothing new. There's been a long historic tradition of everyday cycling in Copenhagen, as you can see in this picture from probably the late 30s or something. It's due to many things: the climate, the size, no car industry, the flatness of the city, the layout of the city, and of course also public investment. But in 2006, we took a deep step forward. Copenhagen got a new Lord Mayor, former EU Commissioner Ritt Bjerregaard, who put cycling on the top of her agenda, and I was mayor for the technical and environmental affairs. And of course, it was very good to work in an area where the Lord Mayor also had a very, very strong interest. So that's also my encouragement to Annie, is get a close relationship to the Lord Mayor and get the Lord Mayor on your agenda. But we introduced this campaign, I Bike Copenhagen, and the kind of the idea behind this whole campaign was basically to kind of straighten the backs of the Copenhagen cyclists, communicating to them that we actually really like you as citizens. We think you're great citizens. We think you contribute with a lot of very strong things to our city when it comes to health, when it comes to urban life, when it comes to environment, CO2 emissions, all these kind of things. We basically think that you as cyclists are kind of the backbone in a lot of the identity we want to create in the city. And from 2006 and onwards up till today, and they are negotiating the budget in the city of Copenhagen right now, and I am pretty sure, and I look over to Marie Kostrup, who's the head of the bicycle program in the city of Copenhagen, but I'm pretty sure that they will also find money for investing in bicycle infrastructure in 2022. But actually from the year 2006, we have onwards every year invested quite a lot, and I'm pretty sure that Marie will touch more on the numbers. But every year there's been kind of significant funds in the city of Copenhagen set aside for investing in bicycle infrastructure. And I laughed a little bit when I saw Annie's presentation, because it's actually quite interesting. It's exactly the same things that you see in Copenhagen. We cycle because it's fast, because it's easy, because it's a good combination with kind of the urban lifestyle if you want to be an efficient modern citizen in the city. It is not about the environment. It is not of kind of those kind of green reasons, even though they're good. But that is not the main reason to cycle. And a part of the ongoing investment scheme in Copenhagen, that is what Peter also touched, is kind of working with the aesthetics, working with high-level architects and designers and artists to kind of design iconic bicycle infrastructure. You mentioned the inner Harbour bridge built by very good Dutch constructors, and it's really a gem in the city. I don't have any pictures of that. This is the bicycle snake, or the absolutely wonderful circle bridge designed by Danish Icelandic artist Olafur Eliasson. But I think it's important to kind of have this visibility in the city, that it's not only about white paint or red paint, but it's actually also building some iconic structures that kind of makes people flabbergasted, or I don't know if you can put it that way, but actually it's a bit maybe it's because I have a background being an actor, but art is important in the sense that art creates a meeting with ourselves. It kind of gives us this wonderful feeling of being human beings, and also understanding that we are able to change things, and we're also able to change the mobility in the city. We see more and more of these in Copenhagen, not more and more locksmiths, but we see more and more ways of integrating the bicycle into the commercial life of the city, and even the city of Copenhagen and the capital region of Copenhagen is also working more and more dedicated with that. And I normally say this is just about innovation. It's about having an innovative mindset in how you kind of approach this as business life. And he actually makes very good business with his locksmith cargo bike, and so does this undertaker. She actually also has a good clientele because there's a lot of people who can see the point in using this as the final travel. But talking about innovation, it's also about how you use innovation in recreating the streets. This is the famous Copenhagen Footrest. It can seem ridiculous, it can seem useless, but I have to say, if you're the first one that arrives at a red light and you just missed the green light, it's extremely comfortable, at least in my age, that you don't have to kind of get down your bike, but you can just, hang there on the bar. The basket there where you can kind of throw it's a special Danish thing because we always eat when we are on the move. I don't know why, but we have a tendency to snack when we are cycling or walking, or because restaurants are very expensive in Denmark. So of course that is also extremely convenient. This is up there. It's just one example of you have a countdown to the next light signal, but it's kind of having that, and that is, I think, my encouragement to civil servants who are present here. Be innovative in your approach to what you can integrate in the urban space that makes cycling, creates a better flow for cycling, that creates visibility for cycling, that makes the bicycle ride more comfortable, because green lights are really comfortable for cyclists when they don't have to stop, all these kind of things, but have that innovative approach to that. This is not to go into details of specific numbers, and I can show you this because this is almost after I stopped as deputy mayor, so I have had no influence in these numbers. But I think one of the things that the city of Copenhagen has done extremely well is a very, very high level of calculating, of measuring, of reporting on satisfaction, on injuries, on satisfaction with cycling culture's impact on urban life. And I don't know where the administration learned it from, but I know where I learned it from. I was very much inspired by Danish urbanist Jan Gehl, who some of you are maybe familiar with. But I think that he actually learned us that sitting down, counting, or asking people is a very good thing. Why are these numbers interesting? Well, from a political point of view, if you see from 2008 to 2018, it's 10 years. It is a long time in politics, but in real life, it's actually not a very long time. Especially when you get my age, you understand that 10 years is actually quite a short time. And when you can see how much that we have moved in 10 years' time, I think you actually get some of the best political arguments that you can ever get, that it does make a difference when you do these kind of investment. When you every year invest in this, it actually pays off because it creates more cyclists, it creates more happy citizens, it creates better mobility in the city. And I believe that this is one of the arguments that also gets the right side of the city parliament on board, because they can see that it's kind of not waste of money. We can discuss whether a footrest, does this change the world? Not necessarily, but doing all these things for cyclists actually is a good investment. I strongly believe in policy making, and one of the big stepstones from Copenhagen was hosting the UN Climate Summit COP15 in 2019. That led to that we in 2007 and 2008 made some very strong policies, the eco-metropolis and a metropolis for people. This is a long time ago, but they are still the foundation of the city of Copenhagen's ambition to be the first climate neutral capital by 2025. And I'm very happy to see that even the new plan, Community Copenhagen, has a very strong target on, as Peter also touched, it's not only about cycling, it is also about walking, it's also about public transport. It is basically about urban life in the city. This is a quote that I like very often to refer to. And it's probably a bit more interesting in a Danish context in the sense that it is said by a right-wing member of the Danish parliament. And I believe that that is one of our successes in the cyclist federations and also in civil society in general, that we have actually succeeded in creating a kind of political consensus about cycling politics. Investing in that is a very good thing. But I also think that it touches on something that at least Annie, Peter, and I have in common. I have not met any politician who don't have an ambition of creating a better tomorrow than today. I have not met a single politician who is not occupied with how can I make sure that the world, the city, is in a better state when I leave than when I took it over. Of course, again, we may have different approaches to it, but if you kind of have this approach that we are basically making politics to create a better world for our children and our grandchildren, I think we are. We do understand that we are doing our work right, and especially in these years where we see a young generation who are really strong on climate issues, on sustainability issues, on consumerism issues. I think that it's important to bear this in mind. And when it comes to cycling planning, this is probably the most. I have talked a lot, and I often repeat myself. But this one is actually what I would mostly like to be repeated for. It's from a interview that I made with The Guardian some years ago, and I basically think that every city planner, every engineer who works with cycling infrastructure should ask themselves this question: would you let your child cycle here? If not, then it's an unsafe and insecure environment for cyclists. And I think it's a good kind of thing to have in the back of your head. Is this infrastructure accessible for children? Of course, in a capital, that cannot be possible everywhere, because even with cyclists, you have streams of traffic that are so heavily congested, also with the cyclists, that you will not necessarily let a child cycle there. But I like the point that Peter made: integrate children in your dialogue on how do we create the futures of cities. And we, some years ago, many of you have seen this before, but I really like these quotes from Kit. When I ride my bike, I get to ride to new places quickly. Cycling is environmentally friendly. I would rather go by bike than by car to avoid traffic jams. And one of my own favorite, I love to ride the bike. It is so hyggeligt. Hyggeligt is an untranslatable Danish word. It means the Finn knows what I'm talking about. It's about having a good time. And think about it again, when you cycle and have this interaction with other people, you know that in the Netherlands also, when you kind of have that non-verbal interaction with people, it is actually a nice feeling that we're moving there together. This, I think, is also important, that especially in a time where especially a lot of young people lack a sense of freedom, do have a lot of issues on mental health. It is important to one cannot underemphasize the importance of physical activity. And my own personal favorite, I love to ride my bike. I have no idea why. At least for me, it is really about freedom. But again, don't underestimate the socio-economic benefits from cycling. These are some old numbers from the Danish Ministry for Transport. They actually just last year launched some new numbers, and it's not now it's not 7 kroners, now it's 8 kroners. A bit over €1 per every single kilometer you exchange the car with the bicycle in the city. I don't think that you can find any investment that has more return of investments or better return of investments than everyday cycling has. Peter also mentioned the role models in the cities. This is the Crown Prince family in Copenhagen. On the contrary to the Dutch, they never do it officially. There are no official pictures with them on cycle. They're all private pictures there. As the Crown Princess told me once, she said, cycling is a part of our private life. And I actually like that approach to it, that this is where we are a private family. That was the words that she used. But of course, it is a very, very strong impact that you see a very well-known young family living a modern urban lifestyle with a bicycle. And there's no social stigma. I mean, they can afford all the cars they need, but there's no social stigma in this. It's also important that we do have ministers for transport who make themselves visible with the bicycle. The present one, Mr. Benny Engelbrecht, he presents himself with the hashtag Cykelminister, means bicycle minister. And he has actually been a good and strong advocate for this, with, for example, quotes like this: bicycles can't save the world, but it's damn close. Of course, one thing is what you say and the photo opportunities. Another thing is what you deliver. And at least Annie and Peter will know what I talk about when there's also an element of realism in politics. I mean, that you need to find coalition sometimes, you need to compromise, and that is a tough thing about politics, is the compromises, that you cannot necessarily do all the things you work, but you have to have the patience, as Peter mentioned. But I try to look around and see where in the world do I come across politicians who are kind of on the right track. I've never met this guy, but I really like, this is the mayor in a small Spanish town who has basically banned cars out of his town. He's a big car lover himself, but he wanted to stop the fatalities, the car accidents that was happening in the city, and that has been extremely popular approach. Another one here, the former Swedish minister for the environment and urban planning, talks about taking the car down from the pedestal and treat it as a mean of transport, just like any other mean of transport. Basically, in a European approach, have this democratic approach to how do we share the urban space, have that discussion, and cycling is just as equal part as the pedestrian and the car and the public transport. And I would actually say that the public transport, the pedestrian, and the cyclist should be higher on the agenda in an urban context because of space. And it's also interesting to see on an international level that it is changing. This is the former US Secretary for Transport, Anthony Fox. But right outside, standing behind, very much in the back, is the present American Secretary for Transport, Pete Buttigieg, who at that time was a mayor in a small city of South Bend. But they visited Copenhagen some years ago, and we were out cycling. So in that sense, I am actually confident that the world will change on this, and also having the Danish commissioner in the vice president of the commission being very vocal and outspoken, together with her Dutch colleague, Frans Timmermann. When it comes to cycling, we could not have a better duo. Her parents are a member of our organization. We could not have a stronger cycling duo in the head of the European Union. Just to round off and some advices. Focus on children. Focus on the next generation. Focus on their approach to mobility. I think that is one of the key messages, in that it is our responsibility to educate the next generation and to learn them and give them the tools to be active mobilists, sustainable mobilists. This does not come for free. It's not only about campaigns or good photo opportunities. It is about investing. Things cost. Highways cost money, railway station cost money, airports cost money, and bicycle infrastructure also costs money. The fun thing about investing in bicycle infrastructure is that you get a lot for the money. I mean, you really get a lot compared to other means of transport. Have patience. Dare to also integrate the aesthetics. I think that is a tendency that some cities tend to forget, And I think this whole Corona pop-up bicycle lanes can kind of make us move away from that and have good design plans. Annie talked about making a new city plan. Make sure that you integrate cycling in a lot of these discussion that goes on with the electric cars, with the autonomous cars, with intelligent traffic systems, e-scooters, which I think you probably have a bigger problem with here than you realize. And I think we have, as politicians, a big responsibility to kind of make sure that the right distinction between the different modes of transport are there. Also very important, create political policies and visions that are political sustainable, that can survive change of leadership. Because this is long-time development that we need to do, and it cannot, I mean, when the Lord Mayor changes and everything will go in a completely different direction, that's not good. There has to be a possibility to plan long ahead. Very important, engage civil society, get the cyclist organizations on board, get business life on board, get academia on board. And especially within academia, the Dutch are much, much better than we are, but we really, at least in Denmark, we need to develop this, and we do see also a tendency to recreate that. That is important. And again, include a wide political spectrum. This is not only about being green or red, but this is about wanting to create good conditions for citizens. And understand that this is about so many things that influences urban life. I encourage you to check out the cyclingsolution.info platform created by the Cycling Embassy of Denmark, which does have a lot of good best practice examples from Denmark. And it can also get you in contact with a lot of your colleagues, and also check out the Cycling Embassy of Denmark. We're very happy now that there's also a Dutch Cycling Embassy, so we have a corps diplomatique now. I think there's actually even a British and a German cycling embassies. They're very small, and I will also encourage you in Finland and in other countries to create these forums where different stakeholders can have dialogue with each other, because I think that is seen from a Danish perspective, that is where the embassy works very good. There's also a forum where all of us basically meet. Thank you very much for your attention. It's great to be out in the world again and to be inspired. And as we say in Denmark, pedal power, yes please. Thank you very much.